Hello and welcome to Topic Crypto. Thank you so much for joining me today and also for sticking with the channel both through the bear market and while I've been away. I'm really sorry that I didn't get around to making videos a lot sooner than this, so I do apologise for that. But what's been going on while I've been away? Well, both quite a lot and not that much. That's because the headlines have really been dominated by the price action that's going on. Bitcoin in the month since November lost 50% of its value before bouncing back by about 25% in the past few days. Within the space of a week, it seems like much of the pessimism around the market has really evaporated away, and the questions of quite when and where will we bottom out have changed to, is the worst behind us and is this beginning of some sort of bull market? Perhaps, of course, that is true. Perhaps the worst of this is behind us and this is the start of some sort of recovery. But it is absolutely too early to get carried away and say that that must be the case, or to really get excited and say conditions have changed. In fact, saying that conditions have definitely changed after 3 or 4 days of green candles is kind of like looking out the window, seeing that it's snowing, and thinking climate change can't be real then. This is a very small, very localized event set against a polar opposite backdrop as soon as you zoom out. And I think we're going to need an awful lot more data and evidence before we can say that the bear market is definitely over. For the short term though, it definitely seems that some higher prices are possible, though this CoinDesk article does point out that there are some technical hurdles on the way up, and maybe $4,400 could be a region that's difficult to pass. Still, I don't see why even up to 5,000 might not be possible within this rally. Over a longer time frame though, I can't help but think that we're probably going to have at least one more big downwards push in what could be a final dramatic step down to finally bring the trend to a close. And for me to convince me that the bear's grip is really weakening on the market, I want to see Bitcoin above $6,000 cleanly and, finding some support above there. And that $6,000 price level is surely going to be a massive psychological barrier to get through that we could bounce off of a few times before that even happens. With all of this, I'm not trying to sound incredibly bearish. I'm just trying to be a bit more realistic about what's going on and account for the fact that the longer term trends tend to really dominate what's happening in markets. Even if we do start some sort of a recovery though, I can't help but think it's going to be a very slow and incremental uptick for a longer time period. And this positivity might come too late for a number of parties in the cryptocurrency space. Over the past few months or so, we've seen a number of announcements about firms downsizing and trying to save money. The most notable of these is probably Joseph Lubin's software development company ConsenSys, who's recently announced a 13% downsizing that might actually be something of an understatement. The Verge reported recently that as part of their restructuring, ConsenSys are ejecting a number of startups they support in their ConsenSys Labs incubator program, often leaving them without any financial support that they would need to actually seek new backers so that they can survive in the longer term. With 36 startups previously under their roof, the streamlining efforts to produce what is being called ConsenSys 2.0 could reduce the company's workforce by as much as 60% and may leave something like 700 people without employment. These numbers sadly aren't a one-off. You've probably already heard about Steemit, who saw a 70% reduction in staff earlier this month, while cryptocurrency projects like SpankChain and Poet have also announced cutbacks and redundancies. And all of these are just the projects that are actually making announcements. There's probably an awful lot of other companies out there that are slowly downsizing and trying to make drastic savings, but not announcing it so that they don't scare investors. For the companies that are developing in this space at the moment, this really is a painful time, but there will be positives to take away from this. Companies that aren't committed or aren't run very well will die out, but the overall quality of the space that's left behind will of course be better. Meanwhile, the companies that do survive will have learnt a vast number of very important lessons. They'll understand better how to exist sustainably, and they'll be able to make better preparations for emergencies in the future. ConsenSys, for example, was allegedly burning through $100 million per year, with Joseph Lubin reportedly running the company as if ETH was going to $10,000. Meanwhile, a former top 50 cryptocurrency, Archain, who are now described as functionally bankrupt, blew about 2/3 of their ICO funding on a single purchase whose relevance was questioned by their investors. These behaviours are completely unsustainable, and it's completely insane to me that companies have been out there spending money that recklessly. But if it takes this downturn to really instill some common sense and rationality into the leaders in this space, then I don't think it's a bad thing. And it's not just the ICOs and the software development companies that will be suffering during this crypto winter. Investment firms, hundreds of which popped up during the bubble in 2017, will also be feeling a lot of pressure as the prices have fallen this year, and heads are rolling at some of these firms as a result. In many cases, these funds are only just receiving the ICO tokens that they purchased back in 2017 because of the lockup periods that they have to go through before they can access them. What this means is they're left with some very heavy bags that they can't sell because of illiquidity in the markets, and they then have to get rid of their Bitcoin or their Ether or other more major assets that they can sell, and that creates more downward sell pressure and means that it's probably people like the investment firms that are responsible for a large portion of the selling action at these fairly low prices. Even some more mainstream firms are feeling the effect of this extended dip, with the likes of Nvidia and AMD having to massively discount their graphics cards because miners just aren't buying them at the moment. Nvidia's share price took a hit in November as they revealed what they've called a crypto hangover. All of this, of course, paints a very bleak picture of the short and medium term for the cryptocurrency space. But there's a group of people who don't care about that bleakness, and that's the regulators, because they're going to do their job whatever the market is like. You probably already heard about the SEC's November ruling where two ICOs, Airfox and Paragon, who raised money from non-accredited investors in an ICO, were required to pay a $250,000 fine and crucially repay their investors. This ruling is basically a notification to every single company that raised money through a token sale, and it's telling them they might have to give some of their funds back in the near future if either angry investors or the SEC come after them, and that's something that could potentially kill off a whole bunch of projects. The crypto-knowledgeable lawyer Jake Chervinsky has made a number of posts on Twitter looking at this ruling, and a few things that he said have stood out to me. Firstly, when asked if repayments would have to be made in fiat or cryptocurrencies, Chervinsky said that the more valuable option would probably be required to prevent investors from suing. So whatever cryptocurrency prices are doing at that time, the ICO issuers are going to feel the pain of reparations. Something that might help these companies, though, is the fact that issuing refunds will probably be an opt-in process. If investors have to fill in some claim form and prove that they qualify for a reimbursement, many people probably won't do that. Chervinsky says that claim rates tend to be lower than 10% in class action contexts, so this could be almost a saving grace for a lot of companies. And the final takeaway from his tweets is just how vague everything is still. The SEC have provided some very rough guidance that gives them a lot of wiggle room to change their minds or make any updates later. There's no explanation of key questions like when a digital asset securities or quite how far the SEC's jurisdiction is going to extend. For virtually everything, the regulator is saying come to them and ask for guidance in a specific case, and they'll try and work out what to do. As a result of all of this vagary, Chervinsky says that every crypto company that raised funds through a public token sale has a non-zero chance of being forced to pay back every single dollar to initial investors. So there could be even more dramatic and painful times coming up as all of this gets worked out in the next few years. But of course that pain doesn't have to happen. Not if governments actually push through regulations that are directly aimed at cryptocurrencies and completely alter the way that agencies like the SEC are operating. That's something that might actually happen, and it might happen soon, with two US congressmen recently introducing the Token Taxonomy Act of 2018 to the House of Representatives. This act would amend the Securities Act of 1933 and 1934 to specifically exclude digital currencies from being classified as securities. Elsewhere in the world, the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority are set to unveil new ICO regulations by mid-2019. The Swiss Federal Council have released a report detailing legal frameworks for distributed ledger technology, while HMRC in the UK recently clarified how tax rules apply to cryptocurrencies. We'll have to wait and see how all of this legal stuff actually develops, but we're potentially standing on the cusp of actual regulatory clarity around cryptocurrencies in a number of countries, and that means the future could be incredibly exciting. Clear regulations would be beneficial for everybody who's already working in this space, but it would also remove one of the major roadblocks for traditional institutions who are looking to get into this space. Even with the current confusion around rules, we're seeing some institutions eager to get involved in cryptocurrencies. Obviously, there's BACT, the high-profile cryptocurrency platform from ICE that's now scheduled to launch in January next year, the Börse Stuttgart Group, the second largest stock exchange in Germany, who recently announced plans to launch a cryptocurrency trading platform, while Nasdaq are reportedly planning on launching their own Bitcoin futures product in 2019, and Facebook, after an aggressive hiring spree, are developing their own digital stablecoin to be used in WhatsApp. And of course, we're all well aware of the CBOE's attempts to get an ETF off the ground, though it's unlikely that they're actually going to be successful. Again, Jake Chervinsky has made some interesting points about this, mainly highlighting the SEC Commissioner's comments about the need for more market surveillance, which will help them spot manipulation in the underlying Bitcoin markets. Cryptocurrency exchanges are extremely unlikely to hand over the user data required to satisfy the SEC's demands here. And I would like to say that they don't want to give that over because they're concerned with protecting user privacy in a way that's kind of in accordance with the principles of the cryptocurrency movement. In reality, though, I kind of think most exchanges don't want to give over data because they're the ones who are doing the manipulating. Pretty much everyone has been suspicious about wash trading, where people basically buy and sell tokens to manipulate the volume and make it appear something is far more popular and has more interest than it actually has. And recently we've seen a report come out that confirms everybody's suspicions. This report comes from the Blockchain Transparency Institute, and it suggests that wash trading might be a lot worse than I think a lot of people probably suspected. The BTI's evidence suggests that more than 50 exchanges are faking more than 95% of their volume, and of the top 25 most traded Bitcoin pairs listed on CoinMarketCap, only 3 exchanges actually appear to have the volume they say they have. Most of the others faked about 99% of their volume. I thought this was really disappointing to see, and it's the behaviour that we really need to try and stamp out by voting with our wallets and all of this. We need to remove the bad players from this space because that means there's simply less reason for the governing bodies and the regulators to actually make incredibly harsh regulations in the efforts to protect consumers because of these dodgy players. The issue is, though, with honest exchanges being very much the exception instead of the rule, it's pretty difficult to actually go out there and not support an exchange that's behaving improperly. And it's difficult to even know who you can trust at the moment. I've actually been meaning to do a more in-depth video looking at some of the kind of shady things that exchanges are doing for a while now. So let me know if you're interested in seeing a video that kind of covers those topics, and maybe I'll get started on researching that, though I think it's something that's going to take me quite a while to put together because I know I want to be quite thorough as I look at sort of all of the things that are going on. Another thing we need to try and stamp out is pump and dump schemes. They're something that can destroy newcomers' confidence in this space, and it's another thing that's likely to draw the wrath of regulators. There's a new report that's come out covering the sort of economic impacts of pump and dump schemes and goes into exactly kind of how effective they are. I'm not going to cover that all right now, but I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can check it out if you're interested. And finally for today, I want to cover a sadder piece of news that was announced earlier this week, and that is the death of Timothy May, who is a co-founder of the cypherpunk movement that gave rise to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. May is best known for writing the Crypto-Anarchist Manifesto back in 1988, and for co-founding the cypherpunk mailing list in 1993, which allowed techno-libertarians from around the world to come together and discuss various different ideas, including the possibility of developing digital non-government currencies. Perhaps unsurprisingly, May became kind of disappointed with what the cryptocurrency space was like, arguing that they are too complicated, that they suffer from draconian rules about KYC and AML, and laws about reporting suspicious activity. He also described much of the market as hype, evangelizing, hodl, get-rich-Lambo garbage that would make Satoshi buff. While he may not have loved what this industry has become, I think that May's passing marks a really good moment to take a step back and actually appreciate where we have come as an industry. The history of cryptocurrencies is incredibly fascinating, and it also helps put into perspective a lot of what's currently going on. In the space of about 3 decades, we've come from being a concept discussed among a group of hardcore technophilic libertarians into a $100 billion industry that is recognized by people all around the world. I'll leave a link to a very short post that kind of outlines Bitcoin's history in the comments below, so you can check that out if you're interested, and I do recommend researching this if you haven't done so already. And again, a video looking back at the history of Bitcoin and where we've come from is something that I'd definitely be interested in making, so if that's something you would like to see, again, let me know about that. Everything else I've mentioned in the video here is linked in the comments below, so you can look up everything that you're interested in. So my camera has just died, so I've had to swap over to my phone just to wrap this up. But I do want to thank you so much for watching again today, and again I want to apologise for not making a video sooner. If you're wondering where I wasn't scared away by the price action or anything like that. I really don't care that much about what it's doing at the moment. But what happened was I started a new job, or started my first job, and it's taken me some time to get used to not being able to spend most of my time working on this and researching and filming and writing and all that stuff. And then once I finally managed to get into a pattern where I had some time to do that, I go into a stupid cycle where I'd think, I've not made a video for a while, so the next one I make needs to be really good. And then I would write a script, or I would even film a whole thing, and then watch it back and be like, no, this isn't good enough, and bin it, and then start again. And I think it's much better just to get out there and make things, and even if it's not as good as I want it to be, it's something. So again, yeah, I'm really sorry about not posting anything sooner. And annoyingly, I'm actually away for a few days next week, so possibly it's going to be at least a week before I'm able to make another video, but I definitely will be much sooner on the next one than has been waiting for this. Actually, there will be a review out in the next few days. I've just got to finish editing that one, but yeah, keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, have a great Christmas if you celebrate that, or, great Tuesday if you don't, and I will see you in the next video.